On October the 7th, the Syrian Army and the National Defense Forces (NDF) launched a major counterattack on the joint terrorist forces of the Free Syrian Army (FSA), Ara al-Sham, Jund al-Aqsa and Jabhat Fatah al-Sham, formerly Jabhat al-Nusra, northeast of the Syrian city of Hama. Initially, the Syrian Army and the NDF took control of the village of Junaynah. Then, after a series of firefights, they liberated Sha'ata and Tulaysiyah. On October the 8th, the pro-government forces freed from terrorists the village of Al-Kahira, the Al-Shutha Hills and the nearby agricultural airstrip, Kefsin, and checkpoints near Al-Kaima and Al-Nakra. On October the 9th, the army and the NDF continued operations in the direction of Tamat al-Khalifa, Kubaybat Abu al-Huda and Kubariya. By October the 10th, they have recaptured the strategic town of Ma'an and the nearby village of Kubariya after a series of heavy firefights with terrorists. Ma'an had been one of the major towns, others are Taibat al-Imam, Al-Latamina and Qasitam, strategically located near the highway and captured by the joint terrorist forces. The terrorist defenses collapsed due to the ongoing infighting among various factions. Major clashes are ongoing between Ara al-Sham and Jund al-Aqsa. Fateh Halab, Liwa al-Haq, Jaish al-Sunnah and Ara al-Shakiyah announced support to Ara al-Sham, while Fatah al-Sham has played a role of the big brother and made a series of attempts to mediate a ceasefire between the groups. On October the 9th, Jund al-Aqsa gave alliance to Fatah al-Sham. Nonetheless, by October the 10th, the ceasefire has not been reached. At least 12 military commanders and over 80 militants have been killed in the fighting. The army, the NDF, Hezbollah, Liwa al-Qud, a Palestinian pro-government militia, and other pro-government units supported by the Russian Aerospace Forces and the Syrian Arab Air Force have been developing momentum against the joint terrorist forces of Jaish al-Fatah and Fatah al-Sham in the strategic city of Aleppo. The pro-government forces implement a long-standing strategy aiming to take an upper hand on the terrorists, using the advantage in firepower and reinforcements. Terrorist units encircled in eastern Aleppo are limited in supplies and maneuverability. On October the 8th, the army and Liwa al-Qud took full control over the Awiya neighborhood after a series of clashes with the terrorists. The pro-government forces also seized a strategic hilltop south of the neighborhood and the Jandul roundabout. On October the 9th and 10th, the loyalists continued operations in northern Aleppo, targeting Jaish al-Fatah at Manashir al-Brej southeast of Awiya. The midterm goal of loyalists in northern Aleppo is to seize the Asfa Hill that will allow to secure Majbal Anzarat and take fire control of the northern part of Anzarat. The next strategic hilltop that the army and its allies will need to seize is Ain Tal, northeast of the Bostan Bashan neighborhood, partly seized by the army. If all of these are done, the militant-controlled areas in eastern Aleppo will be significantly reduced and the government forces will be able to launch a storm of the main neighborhoods of eastern Aleppo. In southern Aleppo, the army and Hezbollah continued pressure on terrorist units deployed in the Sheikh Said neighborhood. The Sheikh Said road to central Aleppo will likely become the axis of the main offensive operations of the pro-government forces in the area. In the 1070 apartment project, no sides have been able to make gains despite the ongoing firefights. 35,000 terrorists were killed in Syria from February the 27th to September the 1st, Russia's Deputy Defense Minister Anatoly Antonov announced, adding that 586 settlements and 12,360 square kilometers of the country's territory were liberated in the same period. Russian heavy aircraft carrying cruiser Admiral Kuznetsov will depart to the Syrian coast to take part in the ongoing anti-terrorist operation in the period from October 15th to 20th, Interfax news agency reported, citing a source familiar with the situation. A large anti-submarine warfare ship, a big sea tanker and a rescue tug will accompany Admiral Kuznetsov in the campaign, which will last 4 to 5 months.
In 2015, Messianic Rabbi Jonathan Cahn gave a prophetic warning to America regarding Baal. A year later, that word has become reality, but Cahn says it all began on 9/11. Take a look.
Messianic Rabbi Jonathan Cahn is known for his best-selling novel, The Harbinger. He compared the United States to the destruction of ancient Israel. His teachings, which are known for revealing the deep mysteries of God's Word, are broadcast around the world. In his devotional, The Book of Mysteries, Jonathan takes you on a one-year journey to mountaintops, caverns, in the oil-lit chambers of scrolls to uncover secrets that he says will change your life.
And Jonathan Cahn is here with us right now to talk more about these uncertain times that we're living in. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
A blessing to be here, always.
Talk about this Arch of Baal in New York City and what has happened.
Yeah, well, the harbinger, the template is that a nation is warned by God, but the nation of Israel happened in the last days. They were warned that the harbingers or signs appeared and they turned away from God. They got worse. But as they headed to destruction, but they were worshiping the god Baal. Baal is sort of behind the times of the harbingers. So now it's happening in America. The harbingers revealing that parallel, that these same 9 harbingers have appeared warning America that it's going rapidly accelerating from God. But the question is, could the sign of Baal therefore manifest on American soil, which is a sign of apostasy, a sign of a nation that has turned away from the God it's known. And it's actually the God they offered their children up to, where they called evil good, where they persecuted the righteous. That's what happened in ancient Israel. Well, happening in America. So the question is, could it appear? And it'd be crazy because nobody really even brings up Baal, but it happened. The sign of Baal has appeared on American soil. And it just happened within this last month. In September, it appeared in New York City. I went down there to witness it myself. Here's the arch that led the worshipers of Baal to worship Baal in the temple of Baal from Syria. And so,
no, but it wasn't introduced in New York as this is Baal here. It was introduced under other names, right?
Well, there's actually, and you may have a spot. There was actually a plaque right by the arch. It's that temple of Bel. Well, Bel is Baal.
Okay.
Same God. Okay. Same God. So the thing, and they're not saying we're worshiping this, but that's what they did. So here you've got an arch devoted to Baal. I mean, the God, the anti-God of the Bible, and of apostasy happening in America. The deputy mayor of New York was speaking, and she says, we're doing this as an act of defiance. Now, this is in the Harbinger completely. And in the Harbinger, talks about the people saying we're going to rebuild Israel when they were attacked. Said, and this is the warning sign, said, we're going to rebuild what was broken, and it was broken by the Assyrians. Well, this arch was destroyed last year by ISIS, who are the Assyrians in the land of Assyria. So we're literally fulfilling the harbingers and putting up the sign of a nation, that America is the nation that has known God, has been falling away from God and turning to other things. It's calling evil good and good evil, persecuting the righteous. This is a danger sign.
But New York City is saying they're putting up this arch to defy ISIS, right?
That's right. Oh, that's right.
So on the surface, most people would say that's fantastic.
Of course, but so did ancient Israel. Ancient Israel was attacked by Assyria and said, we're going to do this, we're defying Assyria, but they were defying God too, because they were saying we're going to come back stronger, greater without God. And that's what happened. And now, and of all things to put up, I mean, think about Baal. I mean, America. This is now, we're fulfilling even that part of the matching thing to ancient Israel.
Wow. Well, your previous book was called The Mystery of the Shemitah. Thank you for pronouncing it for me.
No problem.
It was about a major economic downturn. Are you still seeing that?
Well, first of all, yeah, what happened, I always warn, and it's in the book all over that, you can't put God in a box. He doesn't have to do something every time at that time. Be warned both ways. But what happened in the year of the Shemitah, it was the worst year for the stock market since the last Shemitah of 2008. It was the first time it finished in the red. It was a global economic collapse of trade, first time since the Shemitah of 2008. It produced 20% of the worst stock market crashes in world history. It was the worst year for making money in 78 years since the Shemitah of the Great Depression. So there were tons of things happening throughout, and we have never even gotten out of the other Shemitah, which paralyzed the world economy. We have not grown at any rate since then. So the effects are still there. What am I expecting? It's in God's hands. But it happened. It didn't have to manifest, but it did again. It manifested again.
Wow. Now, your newest book, we've got it here. It's called The Book of Mysteries. Tell us about what you mean by mysteries.
Yes. Well, mystery is something that's hidden and it's revealed, or it is now revealed in God. The Book of Mysteries, if the Harbinger is the opening up of an ancient mystery, the Book of Mysteries is the revealing of literally hundreds of the mysteries of God. What I believe are some of the greatest mysteries of God, the mysteries of heaven, the mysteries of the end times, mysteries of our lives, mysteries of the rabbis, hidden. So it's all mysteries of what I believe are some of the greatest mysteries of that. And many of the mysteries have, as far as we know, have never appeared before. So it's revealing these things. And what I did is I took the format of the Harbinger. in the sense that I was led to do it, that there's a narrative. A man goes into the desert, meets a man called the teacher. The teacher takes him on this journey for 1 year on mountaintops, caves, secret chambers. And every day he opens up, reveals another mystery of God. Every day. So there's 365 mysteries. So you can read it right through, but also you're taken on this journey, but you can also read it every day. It can become a devotional, unlike other devotionals, that every day you're getting a mystery of God. And but ultimately my burden is that I believe we're going to have very challenging times ahead. Believers. And so I want to strengthen believers, that we be strong, that it's not just getting blown away by the mysteries of God, but to apply it. And there's things in there that to become strong. And actually, I'm hearing, it just came out, we were talking before the show, but I'm hearing people who are not saved are getting saved. So that's my greatest joy, that it's changing lives.
Right. Now, one of the mysteries that you talk about is the mystery of God's name.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yes, in the book, the teacher says to is telling the student the sacred name of God, and the student never heard it before. And he's saying, no, you say it all the time. And so what do you mean? If I say I'm Jonathan, you say I'm whoever, I'm
Heather.
Heather. We didn't get a chance to. So you have to say the name of God. Every time you say, if I say I'm Jonathan, you say I'm Heather, you have to say I am first. That's the name of God. You cannot say your name. When you say that, you have to first say the name of God. And because that your existence, my existence, you only exist because God's existence. So I have to say I am first. And so I have to put him first too when I say that as well. So the thing is, even if I say I'm sad, I have to put I am, he's with me in that. If I say I'm alone, I'm saying I am alone. Even when I'm alone, God is with me. If I say I'm in sin, I am, Jesus is the I am. He came and became one with me in sin, so I'm not even alone there. So the thing is that the key is to take this is that, we think of living for God, which we must do, living to God. But the secret is to live from God, because from I am, that whatever you do, I live from his living. That's I love from his loving. Whatever I am in his I am, that's the secret of life.
Wow. I wanted to ask you, too, about the mystery of the bride and the groom.
I love this one. And like something like what I just said before is one of hundreds of mysteries. There are hundreds, but there's also streams of mysteries in the book. There's one mystery, it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So in the book, there's the mystery of a marriage. You actually are witnessing a marriage in the desert from the time of the Bible. This has an incredible mystery, and that is this. In the times of the Bible, the marriage went like this. In order for there to be a wedding, the bridegroom had to make a journey from his house, the house of the bridegroom, to the house of the bride, no matter what. So he would journey to her house. There he would pledge his life and his love. And then he would have to offer up a treasure for her called the mohar. And that would set her free. If she said yes, they're considered husband and wife. But then they have to separate. He goes back to his house. They're separated for over a year. She prepares for the marriage, saying goodbye to her childhood house. He prepares a house for her, and then the wedding day comes. He's dressed up like a king, and there are torches and a great procession. He makes one more journey with a celebration, this time to take her home. He comes, she's waiting like a queen. They see each other, they're lifted up on the sedan, carried away from her house to his. She finally sees the house that was prepared for her, that she only dreamed about. They come in, they become one. What's the mystery? God is the bridegroom. We all are the bride, or we're born to be the bride. But for the mystery to happen, the bridegroom has to make a journey from his house to our house. So 2,000 years ago, the bridegroom makes the journey of the bridegroom. God comes down to earth. Wherever we are, he comes to our house. And he gives himself, not a price. The bridal price is his life. That's the mohar, sets us free. Then if we say yes, we're joined. But then he goes back. The bridegroom has to go back. So he says, I have to leave. So now is the time of the separation. We're to prepare to get ready for the wedding. But then the day will come when he will come. The bridegroom comes one more time, but this time in glory as a king. And he's going to come not to make a pledge, but to take us home. And so whether we're there for the coming or we're leaving this life, he's going to take us home to the place we have only dreamed about, the house of the bridegroom made for us. And for the first time, we'll be home. It's
such a powerful image. We do have a question from a viewer. We're on Facebook Live right now, of course. And the viewer is asking about the breakdown in the U.S. relationship with Russia. And how does the Book of Mysteries give more depth to what I'm sorry. We can, does that make sense? Yeah.
Perfect. Well, first of all, we are in dangerous times all around. And so the breakdown is all part of that. The Book of Mysteries also has a lot of end time mysteries about what's happening right now. And the other thing it does, we didn't bring this up, is that it brings out things that you would never see in English ever, but they're in the Bible. Example, when we talk about worship in the Bible, the word is proskuneo, which means to kiss. What is worship? to kiss God, to be kissed by God. Another one, in the Hebrew, you never know it. Isaiah 53, it says, it's a prophecy of Messiah's death in Isaiah. It says in his death, but in Hebrew it doesn't say that at all. In Hebrew, mystery, it says in his deaths. He didn't die one death. He dies many deaths, all our deaths. And what it's also saying in Hebrew is that what he died, the word death cannot even contain it, is so big what he did for us. Another quick thing with that is the word for mercy, God's love. In Hebrew, you can't say that really God has mercy. It says he has rachamim, which is not mercy, it's plural. He has mercies. The word for sin is singular, our sin, but the word for his mercy is plural. It means no matter how much sin we have, his mercy is so much greater. There's no end to it. That's why we have eternity, because that's how long it takes to know the love of God. That's just some, but it's filled with things you would not see in English. You couldn't, and yet it's there. It's amazing.
It's really powerful. And I was thinking, too, when you were talking about marriage and the bride and groom, it's interesting that our nation right now is fighting over marriage and what it means and the definition. And here you have another reminder that it is so central in the Bible.
Totally. And I'm going to throw this in. It wasn't planned. Throwing this in that there's one of the mysteries about the end times is the word apostasy. He says there'll be a great falling away. But the original word holds a secret. Apostasy doesn't just mean the falling away from faith. Apostasia also means departure from the state of being. So what happens in the same day that you see a falling away from faith, which we're watching, you're seeing falling away from men departing from the state of manhood, women departing from the state of womanhood, marriage from the state of marriage. This is the other part. It's all there in the word from the Bible. What's happening? Well, we're witnessing right now. Yes,
wow. Well,
absolutely.
Really a time to be vigilant. And
yes.
We thank you so much for being here.
The further sign of Russia's long-term commitment to Syria, Moscow says that it plans to establish a permanent naval base at the Syrian port of Tartus. Russian Deputy Defense Minister Nikolai Pankov says necessary documents are already prepared and are in the process of being approved. The naval base sits on the site of an existing facility that Russia has leased from Syria. Moscow has been beefing up its military presence in that country. It deployed the advanced S-300 surface-to-air missiles in Tartus last week. This as the U.S. has stepped up anti-Syria rhetoric. Russia inherited the naval facility at Tartus when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. The base is of immense strategic importance, as is Russia's sole foothold in the Mediterranean Sea. Gordon Duff is senior editor at Veterans Today, joining us from Ohio. So if we want to take a look at what message this is sending out, in particular to the U.S., what do you think?
Well, one of the things Russia is making clear is that they're standing behind the Assad government, that with this being a permanent base, with the air base nearby being a permanent base, these bases are intended to be their recognition that whatever negotiations, they're in Syria to stay, and whatever government Syria ends up with. And this is the side Russia is being very clear about, that Russia is going to be a military presence in Syria. It's going to be a military presence in the Eastern Mediterranean. And this is being done in the light of recent moves by the U.S., by France in particular, recent events at the United States, or the United Nations rather, that have made it clear that the West is really militarily aligning with ISIS, particularly with al-Nusra, that any idea of moderate opposition, of any kind of negotiated settlement in Syria has been entirely a farce. That the West is looking toward a military victory against not only Syria, but a military victory against Russia in what looks to be a wider conflict that they feel is going to run all the way through Ukraine up to the Baltic. This is a very, very dangerous time, and Russia is drawing a line in the sand, and they're doing it, as they so often do, in a totally legal context, which really points out that the West is operating entirely illegally. There's no UN resolution allowing military force to be used inside Syria, and certainly there's no UN resolution that allows the current threats against the Syrian government by the U.S., France, and others to have any standing. And Russia, we believe, may come to blows with France, the U.S., and even Britain over this base and over the defense of Syria.
Thank you for that, Gordon Duff, senior editor at Veterans Today.
It's AP News Minute. Tension and insults marked Sunday night's presidential debate in St. Louis. Hillary Clinton suggested that Donald Trump is not fit to serve as president. Trump said if he were in charge, Clinton would be in jail. North Carolina is still dealing with torrential floods from Hurricane Matthew. At least 8 people are known dead in that state from the storm, out of at least 18 in the U.S. 2 missiles landed near a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Red Sea off Yemen's coast on Monday. The Navy says they were fired from rebel-held territory in Yemen. And U.S. and Philippine troops held joint military drills in the Philippines on Monday. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte says he'll stop the joint exercises, partly to avoid upsetting China. Ben Thomas, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
Высота в районе 300.
This is AP News Minute. Roads in North and South Carolina are still flooded after Hurricane Matthew's devastating impacts across the South. Law enforcement officials have conducted numerous water rescues in both states. Officials warn to stay off roads no matter how deep the floodwaters may appear to be. Almost a week after parts of Haiti were hit by Hurricane Matthew, communities are getting desperate. Power is still out and water and food are scarce as relief convoys are being halted by young men putting up blockades in villages on the way to hard-hit cities. Commuter rail service has resumed at a New Jersey transit station, damaged after a train crash killed a woman on the platform and injured more than 100. 8 of the 17 tracks at Hoboken Terminal reopened on Monday. And a bald eagle that somehow managed to get wedged into the front grille of a Florida car was freed unharmed by police after Hurricane Matthew roared past the area. The bird could be seen peering out of a passenger car on Saturday in the storm's aftermath. It is now at a wildlife sanctuary in Jacksonville.
In today's headlines, police on heightened alert following Jerusalem terror attack. Israeli Arab MKs questioned over corruption allegations. Trump and Clinton face off in second presidential debate. Welcome to JerusalemOnline.com news. Following Sunday morning's deadly terror attack in Jerusalem, police are on high alert level ahead of Yom Kippur, and security forces are continuing to investigate. 4 members of the terrorist's family were arrested on Monday, as well as other suspects. The primary concern is that the attack will motivate others to take a similar action. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin visited the grieving family of police officer Yossi Kerma, who was killed in the attack. "You have to be strong," he said to Yossi's father. "No one will get us out of here." Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu paid a visit to the wounded in the hospital and said they prevented a bigger tragedy. Meanwhile, security was increased around District Court Judge Hagit Mak Kalmanovich, who approved the postponement of the terrorist jail sentence. MK Yehuda Glik accused the judge of having the blood of the victims on her hands. He later toned down his statement and said he did not mean to call for violence against her. Police questioned under caution Israeli Arab MKs Hanin Zoabi and Jamal Zakhalka over corruption allegations in the Balad party. Demonstrators gathered outside the building and held up signs in their support. MK Zakhalka said the police was deliberately trying to harm the political representation of the Israeli Arab sector. United States presidential nominees Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton faced off in a second debate on Sunday at the Washington University in St. Louis. Both nominees made harsh accusations at one another. At the center of the tension were Clinton's private email scandal and Trump's offensive comments about women.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
According to a CNN poll, 57% of the debate watchers said Clinton gave a better performance, though most of them also admitted that Trump exceeded expectations.
The US does not rule out strikes on the Syrian government troops, ignoring tough stance of Russia on this issue. Authorities of the country, though, doubt expediency of such step, as Josh Earnest, press secretary of the White House office, claimed. Military action against the Assad regime to try to address the situation in Aleppo is unlikely to accomplish the goals that many envisioned now in terms of reducing the violence there. It is much more likely to lead to a bunch of unintended consequences, Earnest noted. In response to information about the US readiness to attack Bashar al-Assad's troops, the Russian Defense Ministry admitted that such leakage in the Western media may be a prologue to real acts and recommended its colleagues in Washington to thoroughly figure out possible consequences. Major General Igor Konashenkov, official representative of the Russian Defense Ministry, warned the US military authorities that the range of S-300 and S-400 defensive complexes may be a surprise for any unidentified flying object.
The hot water in the kettle gives off water vapor to the air by rapid evaporation, just as rivers, lakes, and ponds give off water vapor to the air by slow evaporation. As the hot water-filled air hits the colder air near the ice tray, the water vapor turns into clouds of tiny water droplets floating in the air, condensation. When the air is quite cold and cannot hold any more water droplets, they collect together to form larger drops, as on the ice tray. And being too heavy to float in the air, they fall back to the earth as rain.
News.